The film begins by showing some soldiers carrying gold. Suddenly, a cowboy with no teeth stops them. The cowboy asks the soldiers to give him all their gold, but the soldiers are just confused and don't understand why he's asking for it. Then, the scene changes to 1994, where some important people are having a meeting. They're talking about a professor who has successfully made a time machine. The minister says that time travel is not just a story, it's real, and they need to take it seriously. He explains that time travel can only take someone back to the past, not to the future that hasn't happened yet. This is worrying because if a criminal goes back in time and comes back with dangerous weapons, it could cause big problems. Because of this, the government, through the Department of Justice, is asking for more money to create a special police force to stop illegal time travel. At the same time, in a mall, a thief is trying to steal an old woman's bag. But a policeman named Max Walker stops him and returns the bag to the old woman. It turns out that Walker is at the mall to pick up his wife, Melissa. That night, the phone in Walker's room suddenly rang. The person on the other end of the line told Walker that he needed to go to work right away. And Melissa didn't want him to go because it was raining hard and very windy outside. Melissa also said she had something important to talk about. But Walker decided to delay the conversation because he had an emergency call. He believed that as a police officer, he had to put the needs of the community before his own. When Walker left the house, he was suddenly attacked and knocked out. From outside the house, Walker saw Melissa screaming as she was being attacked by some thugs. Then, one of them shot him, but luckily, he was wearing a bulletproof vest, so he didn't die. However, Walker was devastated because he couldn't save Melissa, who died in an explosion that destroyed their house. 10 years later, the scene shifts to 1920. A man named Atwood, who works as a stock trader, uses a newspaper from 2004 to buy stocks that existed at that time. While Atwood is enjoying music, Walker, who now has long hair and works as a time police officer, travels back to 1920 and confiscates all the future items that Atwood brought with him. Walker asks Atwood, who used to be a fellow time police officer, who sent him to that time. Atwood, who cooperates, tells Walker that it was a powerful politician named Mccomb. But Atwood explains that he can't testify in court because his family is in danger. While talking about the threat, two thugs show up, and a fight breaks out between them and Walker. After Walker managed to defeat the thug, Atwood decided to jump off the building instead of going back to the future. But Walker was quick and caught up with him, and they both returned to 2004. During the trial, Atwood still refused to reveal who had given him orders. Since Atwood was a police officer, the judge decided that his punishment would be death by being thrown from the same building where he had tried to jump. One day, Senator Mccomb was riding in a car through the city, feeling very angry. He was upset because Max Walker had messed up a big plan that involved Atwood, who worked for him. For Mccomb, this failure was more than just annoying cause, it was a serious threat to his dreams of becoming president. With a serious look on his face, Mccomb thought for a moment and then decided that Walker needed to be taken out before he could cause any more problems. In a cold and firm voice, Mccomb ordered his men to get rid of Walker as soon as possible, without leaving any clues that could lead back to him. Mccomb knew that as long as Walker was around, his chances of becoming the country's leader were at risk, and he wouldn't let anyone, not even Walker, ruin his plans for power. The next day, while Walker was sleeping, Mccomb's men came to his house. But Walker quickly avoided their stun attacks, and they ended up fighting with knives. Shortly after, a policewoman named Sarah arrived at Walker's house. It turned out that Sarah was Walker's new partner, replacing Atwood, who had died. At the office, Walker reported that Senator Mccomb was the one who sent Atwood back in time to get money for his campaign. Walker also mentioned that he was attacked by Mccomb's thugs that morning. He then complained to his boss about getting a new partner without any warning. However, his boss explained that without solid evidence and witnesses, they couldn't arrest Mccomb, especially since he was a powerful council member running for president. The boss advised Walker to focus on his work, stay alert, and try to work well with his new partner. Later on, the time police detected illegal time travel. After a quick briefing, Walker and Sarah prepared for their mission. Sarah asked why all the technicians looked so scared and nervous. As they boarded the time capsule to travel back in time, Walker explained that time travel wasn't as easy as it seemed. If their vehicle didn't reach the correct speed, it could crash into the barrier wall, which is why the technicians were worried. Luckily, their trip went smoothly, and they arrived in 1994. They quickly headed to the location where the illegal time traveler landed, which turned out to be a workshop owned by Senator Mccomb. Inside the workshop, the younger Mccomb is talking to his mechanic. Suddenly, the older Mccomb from the future shows up with his hitman. The younger Mccomb is confused when he sees someone who looks exactly like him and tries to touch the older Mccomb. But the older Mccomb warns him about the time travel rules, which to keep your distance, don't touch, and stay away from your other self because touching could be very dangerous. At that time, the mechanic, also confused by seeing two of his bosses, tries to join the conversation. However, the older Mccomb, who is very arrogant, shoots the mechanic without mercy. Shortly after, Walker and Sarah arrive to raid the workshop. Walker questions Mccomb about what he's doing there when he should be out campaigning. And the older Mccomb, instead of being nervous, starts giving a speech, explaining that he needs a lot of money for his presidential campaign. He believes that the country needs a rich leader who won't have to listen to anyone else. But then Sarah, who is on her first day of the job, suddenly points a gun at Walker, revealing that she is also working for Mccomb. Walker is then captured by Mccomb's men from the future. However, when they are about to shoot him, Walker fights back, slamming one of his attackers into a gas pipe, which leads to a fight. Walker even punches the younger Mccomb, making his cheek bleed. After defeating all his attackers, the older Mccomb starts showing how to make a computer chip with a special program. He plans to use this chip in a time machine to become rich and powerful, so he won't need to borrow money from banks. When the older Mccomb is about to return to the future, Sarah, who wants to go back with him, is shot because he considers her a burden. Long story short, Walker returned to the future and reported that Senator Mccomb, who was running for president, had killed 2 people in the past, including his colleague Sarah. However, his boss didn't believe that Walker had gone back to the past alone. It turns out that the younger Mccomb had followed the older Mccomb's orders, so now all the time machine equipment came from Mccomb's company. Because of this, the future had changed according to Mccomb's plan. As a result, the agency responsible for keeping time safe from criminals was going to be shut down because it was seen as a waste of money. Then, Walker's boss explained that to arrest Mccomb, they needed evidence of a weapon and 2 witnesses since Mccomb was a presidential candidate. Walker then decided to go back and find Sarah, hoping she was still alive after being shot, so she could testify against Mccomb. But before he could leave, Walker had to knock out the guards. When Walker got into the time capsule, 2 more guards arrived and shot his boss. The guards got too close to the time capsule's engine and were injured. Back in the past, Walker started searching for Sarah. When he found her lying down, Sarah was relieved to see him. Walker explained that he needed her to testify against Mccomb. But Sarah warned him that Mccomb and his men would track her through the blood sample stored in the lab. Walker then went to the lab and found Sarah's blood sample. While there, he accidentally found a blood sample of his wife, Melissa, and discovered that she had been pregnant. This was probably the important news Melissa wanted to share before she died. Soon after, Walker returned to Sarah's room, but to his shock, he found Sarah dead with a syringe filled with poison left behind. And a nurse, who was shocked and thought Walker was the one who did it, screamed for security. Not wanting to get caught, he decided to jump out the window to escape. Later, Walker arrived on the same day that Melissa was murdered. At that time, he met her at the mall, and Melissa was surprised to see how different Walker looked, even though they hadn't seen each other for only a few days. To save time, Walker quickly explained that he was a time policeman from the year 2004. He also urged Melissa to tell him about her pregnancy immediately because he was worried something bad might happen. When Melissa asked about his life in the future, Walker just told her that she would understand later. As night fell, Melissa asked Walker not to go to work because she was pregnant and scared to be alone at home. Suddenly, a thug sent by Mccomb tried to break into their house. But Walker, who was ready for trouble, managed to stop him. Unfortunately, more thugs were waiting, and one of them pointed a gun at them. When the lights suddenly went out, Walker fought off 2 of the thugs before retreating when more thugs showed up. Meanwhile, Walker takes his pregnant wife, Melissa, out of the house during a thunderstorm. For her safety, Melissa has to crawl on the roof tiles. When a criminal comes out through a window, Walker quickly follows Melissa. But then, the criminal comes back, and a fight breaks out. Luckily, Melissa finds a gun and manages to shoot the criminal, saving them both. Melissa then goes to get help, while Walker goes back into the house. Unfortunately, another thug attacks him, but Walker is too strong and knocks the thug out with one kick. Just then, Senator Mccomb arrives, pointing a gun at Melissa, who has been captured by Mccomb from the future. There, Walker has no choice but to listen to Mccomb's speech while one of the thugs sets a bomb to explode. At that moment, the younger Walker arrives and is shocked to see someone who looks just like him. While he's confused, a thug attacks the younger Walker, knocking him out. But just as the older Walker is about to be executed, he arrives in time and kills the thug by breaking his neck. The older Walker then rushes to save Melissa. Time is running out, but suddenly, the younger Mccomb, with a bandaged face, shows up. The older Mccomb gets angry and asks why the younger version came, as he was supposed to be in a meeting. The younger Mccomb explains that he received a call from his future self, telling him to come. In the middle of the conversation between the two Mccombs from different times, Walker reveals that he was the one who called and told the younger Mccomb to come. Then, with a secret signal, Melissa finds a bag that belongs to the older Mccomb and shoots him in the shoulder. After that, Walker pushes the younger Mccomb towards the older Mccomb, causing them to merge into a pile of blood and disappear. This shows why two people from different times can exist in the same place. Back in the future, Walker is happy to see his boss alive and well, and he's relieved to find out that Sarah didn't die. When he returns home, Melissa and their son welcome him warmly. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is time travel is tricky, but nothing's trickier than explaining why there are two of you at a family dinner.